I want to welcome everybody to another session of Coffee with Cleo. We have I'm just going to say one of my most favorite people here. She's going to be a
Mm.
great guest, and I believe you're going to get very excited as she shares more about her leadership, philosophy,
Mhm.
her background. But with no further ado, I'd like to introduce Dr. Janeen Fields. Janine, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Cleo. It's great to see you.
Well, it's great to see you as well. And if you mind, I'm just going to brag on you a little bit. This is something I would like for the audience to know. Janine Fields is a very progressive, forward-thinking leader, and she's very purposeful. Uh,
Mm.
Matter of fact, she is Dr. Fields. She is a research scientist in the Department of Botany and Plant Pathology at Purdue University. In addition to that, she instructs one of the largest foundation plant science courses for the departments and inspires students across many different venues to become more curious and expand their knowledge about agriculture and more. She also leads the Innovation Women in Agriculture course and serves freshman women across Purdue College of Agriculture. She also
Mhm.
leads, now she's very global, she leads the study abroad course to Peru, which we're going to find out more about
Oh, yeah.
Dr. Fields here in a second. But the other thing I wanted to qualify and let you know that her education background. She is alumnus of Penn State University with a Bachelor of Science and Alabama A&M University, or of course with a
Mhm.
Master of Science as well. She earned
Mhm.
her doctorate degree in plant breeding and genetics from the University of Tennessee.
Mhm.
And this is something of note. She is believed to be the first African American woman in a nation to receive a PhD in plant breeding and genetics. Now, that
Yeah.
is absolutely fantastic.
No,
So
it's
I'm
insane.
very honored, and it's a pleasure to have you on Coffee with Cleo.
Well, thank you. I'm so delighted to be here, Cleo.
Well, Janine, tell us about yourself and your career journey. And in addition to that, can you give us some key inspirations that really guided you in this path in your leadership position to where you
Yes, certainly. Well, most people, when they meet me, they think that I was a girl that grew up on a farm, but I'm exactly the polar opposite. I grew up in the city of Philadelphia in a neighborhood that was pretty low income and just non-traditional for me to even be in agriculture. I was fortunate to actually have an opportunity to attend WB Saw High School of Agriculture Sciences in Philadelphia. And it was really that path that transformed my whole pathway as a person and even my career targets or things that I wanted to do in my life. In addition to that, I had a mother that was just very intuitive. She knew that I loved to be outdoors and I love plants. And she pretty much said to me, "You're going to this school." And I was not a
are?
happy camper
There was
at
no
all.
option. There was no option. You are going to go.
Yeah, there was no option. So I was like, "Mom, I have to go to the school," but it also said I have to go to school during the summer for a month. And that summer, I had an opportunity to be exposed to being on a farm around cows,
Yeah.
pigs, horses, had an opportunity to just work with plants in the greenhouse, and I pretty much fell in love. It was sort of a refuge from the neighborhood for me. That beginning ultimately guided me into Penn State, where I studied agriculture science. And then I went on from there and decided to go on for my master's at Alabama A&M, where I was able to really get into the molecular and genetic components of plants more on the micro and micron level.
Okay.
And after that, took a few years off to study and actually worked for a pharmaceutical company, then taught high school as I was raising my children. So I taught high school biology and chemistry. And I'll tell you one of the interesting things when you talk about inspiration. My students would always say to me at that time, "You teach so well. Why
Uh-huh.
don't you become a professor?" And I thought, I'm fine. I'm excited to be a high school teacher. But it was just this gnawing thing in the back of my heart, really wanting to, at some point, obtain my PhD. So after 5 years of teaching high school biology and chemistry, I decided to pursue what opportunities were out there. And I was offered an opportunity to go to 3 different schools. And after looking at different programs, selected the University of Tennessee.
I got to ask you, I've, of course, over 30 plus years in agriculture as an
Mhm.
executive with John Deere, Mahindra, and Case New Holland.
Yeah.
And doing my family on my mother and father's side, they're both from rural America and small farms. So agriculture is in the blood. And but I grew up in the
Wow.
inner city west side of Chicago. But what I'd like to ask you is this: you've also so here you've taught as well, and of course, and
Mhm.
also within part of corporate. I want to
Yes.
know what are some of the things that you brought from corporate to where you are today that possibly have kept you and that you share with some of your students?
Well, one of the key things is the value of teamwork.
Okay.
And how not only as a team leader, you have to have vision, but you also have to be willing to function at any part of the team that's necessary at the time. So I was fortunate where I had so many wonderful people that I worked with, but then I also had opportunities to at times jump in and help them where, say for instance, my specific position is a scientist, but one of the field foremen may have needed help with something or holding thing, dealing with a piece of equipment. I've always been the kind of person where I can lead, but I can jump in where I fit in if someone needs my help. And so one of the things that I've always kind of carried that's really also helped me at my new position in Purdue is just the value of being an important and you know just willing member of a team.
Right.
I think that is often people oversee, or I would say people don't look at that component, but as a leader you have to sort of be a person that's willing to serve as well. That's probably how I put it.
I think that's great insight. And no one's successful alone. And we are in any particular situation, whether you're in school,
Hmm.
corporate world, you're going to be really engaging others. And you're going to be in
Certainly.
some sense of a formalized or informal team and being able to get along.
Certainly.
There's an analogy that you were sharing with me yesterday about soybeans. And I would
Yes.
love for you to share that with the audience right now.
Well, one of the things that we often don't realize when we talk about teams or look at progression is, where do different team members come from? What different qualities do they bring? So I'll use, for example, myself being a North Philly girl.
Okay.
I think of things differently. I saw problems differently. The way that I grew up, you might not have always had what you needed, but you had to make things happen. So I'm a really good troubleshooter. Well, one of the things that I found working with soybeans and actually utilizing plants in order to develop new characteristics or new traits in a line of soybean is that the value of diversity is so critically important. Most people in plant sciences understand that, but also cow breeders and pig breeders, all different types of people in agriculture understand the value of bringing in traits that were not there previously. And so literally there's documented evidence that shows that if we are willing as leaders and teams to bring in people from diverse ethnicities, diverse backgrounds, diverse gender backgrounds, you automatically give your team an edge that perhaps other teams don't have. And so I've seen that literally happen in our research groups here at Purdue, where literally one of the colleagues that I work really close with, his name is Gurija Hall, he has just an extremely diverse team that does his research. And
Mhm.
that value really just always makes that group such a cutting edge research group. So, I emphasize that when we talk about diversity, plants cannot survive without it. Animals cannot survive without it. We cannot survive without making genetic adjustments. And all of that is the element of diversity that changes and allows us to continue to exist. So if we understand that as scientists, and even plants understand that, as people, we need to get a better grip on what makes life flourish. And it really is that diversity element.
I love your philosophy, and I'm going to get more, of course, and engage in asking you questions to share with the audience. I just wrote a couple of articles about the beginner's mindset.
Mhm.
Also a chapter in my book with Coffee with Cleo. And you talk
Wow.
about just being able to surround yourself with a very diverse set of people or community.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that does the output of that really doesn't give you tunnel vision. It gives you an opportunity to not just see few opportunities, but unlimited possibilities. So
Yes,
I I
absolutely.
think that's absolutely wonderful. Well, we're speaking today with, of course, Dr. Jeneen Fields, and very happy to have her on Coffee with Cleo. And so
Glad
we're
to
going
be
to get
here.
involved and ask you a few more questions.